Hare Krishna, do you want to read?
Hare Krishna, Ruchi Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Can you send the prayers in the email, because I don't have the prayers. Sometimes you're not there. Then I don't have the, I don't know where my prayer book is.
Oh, sure, Mataji. I'll try to find them and send them to you, okay? Okay, so maybe we can start with the prayers. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Nashtaprayeshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna, Rasarasika Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to
Jai.
Srila.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada. Is my voice clear this time?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, just will I start or does someone else want to start today?
I can read first. The first.
Okay.
Are you taking into consideration that I read yesterday, so with Prem Rasa, so we are in the next verse, or are you?
I don't know where any devotee stopped. So if you can just let me know, like which verse to start with, I can start from there.
It's okay, we can read it again because I think you both were not there. All of I read with Prem Rasa yesterday,
Okay.
426. 426, I think, yeah.
Or 26. Well, the last time we had a Bhagavatam class with myself involved, we were up to verse 8.
She didn't know, then maybe we read 420 something. So it's okay,
Okay.
then we can just read what is today.
Okay.
Okay, 8, text 8. या एवं शान्तम् आत्मानम् आत्मस्थं वेद पुरुषः नाज्याते प्रकृतोऽस्त्वपि तद्गुणैः सामयि स्थितः. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Although within the material nature, one who is thus situated in full knowledge of the Paramatma and Atma is never affected by the modes of material nature, for he is always situated in my transcendental loving service.
Yeah, we actually
Purport.
have read this one. Sorry to interrupt. We did read this one. Yeah. Anyway.
Text 8. Okay.
Yeah, we read
So
this
should we
one.
do text 9?
Yeah, I think so. That's my fault.
Okay, so text 9. या स्वधर्मेण मां नित्यं निराशीश्रद्धयान्वितः भजते शङ्खैस्तस्य मनोराजन् प्रसीदति. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, continued, My dear King Prithu, when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied within. Purport. This verse is also confirmed by the Vishnu Purana. Occupational duties are known as Varnashrama Dharma and apply to the 4 divisions of material and spiritual life, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. If one works according to the Varnashrama Dharma system and does not desire fruitive results, he gets satisfaction gradually. Discharging one's occupational duty as a means of rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. Bhagavad Gita confirms this as the process of Karma Yoga. In other words, one should act only for the satisfaction and service of the Lord. Otherwise, he will be entangled by the resultant actions.
Yeah, I read
Everyone is
this
situated.
yesterday, but it's fine, we can read it again. I read this verse and the other verse.
Okay. So I guess you were thinking about this verse. Everyone is situated in his occupational duty, but the purpose of material occupation should not be material gain. Rather, everyone should offer the results of his occupational activities. A Brahmana especially should execute his occupational duties, not for material gain, but to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra should work in a similar way. In this material world, everyone is engaged in various professional and occupational duties. But the purpose of such activities should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotional service is very simple, and anyone can adapt it. Let one remain what he is. He need only install the deity of the Supreme Lord in his house. The deity may be Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayan. There are many other forms of the Lord. In this way, a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra can worship the deity with the results of his honest labor. Regardless of one's occupational duty, one should adapt the devotional means of hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering everything to the Lord, and engaging in his service. In this way, one can very easily engage himself in the service of the Lord. When the Lord is pleased with one's service, one's mission in life is fulfilled. So, yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to read. It has been a long time, so I'm grateful to be reading. And sorry about the background. Like the GPS is very loud, so it's I'm sure you guys can hear what it is saying. Um, yeah, so we'll move on to the verse. This verse actually reminded me of Canto 2, chapter, I believe, Canto 2, chapter 2, where Maharaj Parikshit is on his deathbed and he is inquiring from Sukadev Goswami that what is the duty of a human being. And Sukadev Goswami gives us very, very similar answer that the supreme occupation of a human being is to perform his occupational duties as um, as an offering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the prime duty of the soul, to render loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And such occupational duties must not be done for any fruitive gain. Um, and by performing, rendering occupational duties like that, one will achieve great satisfaction in his life. It will give great pleasure to the soul. So this is a wonderful reminder for aspiring devotees like myself. Uh, Generally, the mind has a certain way of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that has come about by contact with material nature for many, many, many lifetimes. So usually, the material mind can only think of performing activities for material gains, mostly for fulfilling the animal pleasures of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and to do it in more and more different ways and sophisticated ways. Or, but that is not the prime goal of human life, human form of life. As it is said in the translation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, continued, "My dear King Prithu, when one is situated in his occupational duty, engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied with it." So, this is the trick. Although it's so simple, we have to be performing our occupational duties. But the only thing is, we have to shift our consciousness from pleasing my senses to pleasing the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the only shift that is required. But as soon as we start meditating and thinking about, oh, how can I please the Supreme Lord? How can I please the Supreme Lord? By thinking like that, by wishing like that, oh, I wish to please the Supreme Lord by my activity. One becomes more and more peaceful and satisfied inside their hearts. And it's a real experience. I can see this. Um, Although sometimes I fail, many times I fail to do this, but whenever I endeavor to perform activities like this, then there is a deep satisfaction that actually comes from within the heart. Um, it's a reality. This is how it is. So I can speak from my experience. And in the purport, Prabhupada says this verse is also confirmed by Vishnu Purana occupational duties known as Varnashram Dharma and applied to 4 divisions of material and spiritual life. So this is actually a very important understanding that nowadays it is completely lost, but previously um, all the human beings were human beings, their lifetime was categorized into 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. So the based on their um, age, it was divided into 4 ashramas: brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So from until 25 years of age, a person would be a brahmachari. He would go to the gurukul to study under the guidance of the spiritual master, and after that they would go, uh, either they get married or they stay and continue their service to the spiritual master. If they go get married, then they enter grihastha ashram. Then there is vanaprastha ashram, where after executing their duties by raising children, by taking care of the wife, after they execute their family duties, they move on to um, leading a life that is more and more dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, as a Vanaprastha, they go around and preach, they go to holy places, and that's the occupation of a Vanaprastha. And when they finally reach 75 years of age, they are very mature in their spiritual understanding and they take sannyas. This is especially true for Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. They definitely take sannyas because one is not supposed to remain in family attachments for an extended period of time. So if one works like that, and then there is also like Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and based on that, like they execute their duties depending on their psychophysical nature. They have particular duties to execute. So by doing service, whatever service we do, even if we are riding a car, if we think, okay, let me drive the car in such a way that the Supreme Lord is pleased, let me drive my car. um, it's hard to relate to certain activities, but still everything in this material world is ultimately uh, um, coming from the Supreme Lord. The source of everything is the Supreme Lord. So we can relate everything in service of the Supreme Lord by thinking of the Supreme Lord. So this is material energy of the Lord, like driving in a car or using the GPS or anything is actually coming from the Supreme Lord. So that can be used in service of the Supreme Lord. So um, that is actually the goal of human form of life. Anything we do it for the pleasure of the Lord. And when we act for the service and satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, we become free from entanglement of karma. So that is the beauty of working for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. For anything that we perform, even simple activities like eating, sleeping, what to speak of mating and defending, even simple activities like that, we incur a reaction based on our motive. We incur a reaction for every activity that we perform. But if the same activity is performed for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, by thinking, okay, I'm going to sleep to refresh my body so that I can serve the Supreme Lord. So even that is done as a service. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to freshen up. I'm going to take a shower so I can go and serve the Supreme Lord. I'm going to eat the prasadam that is offered to the Supreme Lord. So the more we can connect every activity as service to the Supreme Lord, the more the heart becomes pleased and we receive the protection of the Supreme Lord. So that is the benediction that we are all um, looking to achieve. By pleasing the Supreme Lord, the soul becomes pleased. And not only that, the byproduct of such activity is that karma can no longer touch us. So the what karma means is that for every activities there is a reaction. We almost like, there is no activity within this material world for which we do not incur a reaction. But that reaction can be bypassed. We won't receive any reaction if we are doing the same thing for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So everyone is situated in his occupational duty, but the purpose of my material occupation should not be material gain. Rather, everyone should offer the results of his occupational duties. So this is the sum and substance of what Sukadev Goswami was also trying to say in Canto 2, Chapter 2, where he says one should never render any occupational duty for personal gain, for personal motive, to please our senses. So actually, Rupa Goswami also gives a similar definition by saying Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttamam. So he says that one should not have any desire for material mm, gain, whether it is material gain for the body or material gain for the mind. So how does the mind get pleasure? By thinking, oh, I have done so much, I have achieved so much, now I should be recognized. That is the activity of the mind, or the false ego acting through the mind, or the body by thinking, oh, like, oh, now I have done so much for this person must do something back for me. That is fruitive mentality. I have done something, now I must receive something. That is fruitive mentality. But um, the goal of devotional service is not any of this. And that is the teaching of Srila Rupa Goswami. The goal of devotional service is whatever activity I perform, I think I'm doing this for the pleasure of Krishna, and may the Supreme Lord be pleased. So that is the only goal of human existence. But there is a clarification that Rupa Goswami gives by saying, if one does something actually to sustain his body, that is not considered wrong or improper. So this is also connects to the Ishavasham principle. So supposing if I need to eat to sustain my body, and that offering is made to the Supreme Lord, then I can eat as much as it is required by the body. That is not um, under the purview of karma at that point. Whatever we need, what if I need 6 hours of sleep to sustain my body, that is actually acceptable by Shastra. If I need to go see a doctor to help myself, that is acceptable by Shastra. That is not considered improper or material or fruitive by Shastra. So one can perform all activities that are required to keep the body and soul together, but they must not take more than what is required. So all this tie in Rupa Goswami's definition of devotional service, Ishopanishad, and Sukadev Goswami's instructions to Prahlad Maharaj. In this verse, actually, we can see all of them are reflected in this verse. And Prabhupada actually makes it very, very simple. He says that by rendering service to the deity form of the Lord, one actually can use everything that he acquires in the service of the Lord. I have experienced this personally in my life, that as long as I was not worshipping the deities, um, my life or my experience of devotional life was very different. But when I started worshipping the deities, like, it actually changed my consciousness. Others may not perceive it by thinking, okay, it's the same person, like, same struggles, same everything. But inside of me, everything changed, because now I felt more accountable to the deities. I felt, no, now I should not perform any sinful activities, because now I'm connected to the service of the Supreme Lord. I'm connected to the deities, so I should not perform any sinful activities. Um, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. This actually became very prominent. Um, this feeling that I must not perform any sinful activities became very, very prominent as soon as I started worshipping the deities. Also, as soon as I started worshipping the deities, I felt more accountable to all the devotees around me, that okay, now I have to do things properly. I have to be on time. I have to try to keep things clean. I have to keep things organized. All these things like became very prominent in my life. So Prabhupada's advice that one must worship the deity at home, I feel like this um, became more and more prominent in my life. And also I felt whenever I worshiped the deities, I felt a huge change in my consciousness. um, I felt motivated. I felt um, a change in my shift in my consciousness. Like supposing, I go wake up, I take a shower, and I go to worship the deities at 5 o'clock. And my mind is racing and racing and racing and thinking, oh, like, this needs to be taken care of. I have to speak to that person. I have to take care of this thing. That person spoke like this. Maybe I have to respond like this to this person. All that chatter in the mind, by the time I finish dressing the deities, it just like vanishes. I by the time I come out to sing Guru Puja, and I feel like so peaceful in my heart. And this experience is real. Like I experience it from time to time. Whenever I think like, okay, I'm dressing the deities for the Lord's pleasure. It's not for my false ego. When somebody comes and tells me you dress nicely, it's not for that. Actually, the Lord dresses himself. And even artis, when I have performed, like, by thinking, okay, let me keep myself aside for this moment while I'm performing this service, and let me do it only for the pleasure of the Lord. Whenever I have been able to think like that and approach the deity with the proper consciousness, then I have experienced a significant shift in my consciousness, in how I feel happy. Also, inside my heart, I feel like satisfied. And I think, like, at my neophyte level, when I'm doing this and approaching the deity, and in insignificant way, although I'm able to do it, how much more happiness a person will achieve if he does it with more pure motives. If I elevate my consciousness to purer motives, how much more happiness the soul will feel, how much more satisfaction. And that satisfaction is very deep. It comes to a level where I feel like, oh, I don't need anything more. I don't need any more wealth. I don't need like any more comforts. I don't need to eat this, or wear this, or go somewhere else. I i feel happy just by serving the deities. So even at my level, where I don't feel like so much advanced in Krishna consciousness, but even at my level, I can perceive these things. So what Prabhupada is speaking in this verse is very, very true, and we can all experience it. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of purification of our motives. It's a matter of purification of our sinful activities. So if I can achieve it, anybody can achieve it. And I'm coming from a very dark place in my life where I didn't have much to count on, to rely on. But the more I chanted the holy name, the more I worshipped the deities, the more I took shelter of the deities, I am experiencing it. Not every day, but whenever I approach the deities with proper mood, I experience it, I feel it. So I'll pause here for now and see if there is some discussion. I'll have to leave in about 10 minutes. Um, so,
Yeah, good points. Very good points. It's a very interesting verse, this one, how Prabhupada talks about many people doing many different professions and occupational duties, but let them remain as they are and just have a deity in their home, and they can, offer the results of their work to the Lord through that service. And that's really a major part of how Krishna consciousness spreads in the world. It's not just about people living in temples and necessarily directly doing direct service in the temple all the time. It can include, it's very inclusive. I think we talked about this another time, that the concentric circles of the Vada Ashram system means that even those who can't follow the regulative principles, they can at least help the devotees, support them. They can read, they can even, be very indirectly engaged. And then as the circles come closer into the middle, obviously, you have someone maybe has a job, profession, doing something, but he's following the 4 regulative principles. He's initiated. He chants every day 16 rounds, and he has a deity in his house. And he uses his money to spread Krishna consciousness. So it's just amazing how the system works. And it's the future of the movement. That we'll get more and more people who are on these outer circles who are favorable to Krishna consciousness, even if they can't do everything, that's required of them as an initiated devotee. At least they can help in some way. They can be favorable. So it's a really sort of important purport, this one, describing all these different ways that we can engage in devotional service according to the Varnashram system and according to our nature, whether we're, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, and what ashram we're in, if we're married or not married, or a vanaprastha or sannyas. We just, Prabhupada was expert at engaging devotees, his disciples, according to their nature. Some were very good managers, some are not so good at management, so they would do book distribution, or they would cook at the temple for the Sankirtan devotees, or take the prasadam to them, help with, just do labor. So yeah, it's the art of engaging our nature in the Lord's service with the understanding that we're not this body. All right. Will I read the next verse, or would you like to, Ruchi Mataji?
Yeah, I can read it. Hold on, give me a second. So if you scroll up, I'll be able to see it. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So, Parityakt guna samyag darshano vishada seha shantim me samavasthanam brahma kevalamya ashnute. Translation. When the heart is cleansed of all material contamination, the devotee's mind becomes broader and transparent, and he can see things equally. At that stage of life, there is peace, and one is situated equally with me as Sachidananda Vigraha. Purport. The Mayavad conception of Kevalya and that of Vaishnava community is different. The Mayavad thinks that as soon as one is free from all material contamination, he is merged into the existence of the Supreme. The Vaishnava philosopher's conception of Kevalya is different. He understands both his position and the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the uncontaminated condition, the living entity understands that he is the eternal servitor of the Supreme, and that is called Brahman realization, the spiritual perfection of the living entity. This rapport is very easily achieved. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, when one is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is immediately situated on the transcendental platform of Kaivalya or Brahman. So if you scroll up, I can read the okay, that's the translation. Okay, so here it's a very nice verse saying that when the heart is cleansed of all material contamination, so material contamination is basically being affected or being in an illusory state or affected by the modes of nature and by this illusory world where we do not know the basic fact who we are and why we are in this world, what is our purpose over here, and what we are trying to achieve, and what is our position, what is God's position, and what what is the relationship that should exist between um, the soul and God. Um, so when the heart is cleansed, it's very difficult living in the material world to be not affected by other people's actions and the reactions that follow it, and to not be entangled by all the material happenings of loss, of hankering and lamentation, as Prabhupada says. Our mind always, especially mine, is always um, in this mode where it drags me down into either thinking about the past or about what's going to happen in the future, which is a reflection of the hankering and the lamentation. If only I would have done things differently, this would be the case today. And what should I do to save myself from tomorrow, from all the vicissitudes of life? But that is where the material contamination comes, because we have not I should speak about myself, have not yet given up the, in the mind one knows one needs to keep getting it back, the mind to like, okay, this is all an illusion, we are just here for a short while, and the ultimate test of anything, how much it should affect us, is what significance will it have on our deathbed, because on our deathbed all these things wouldn't matter. The most 95% of the things we are worried about is not going to be of any significance on our deathbed. So so that is when we should realize that who we are, who God is, and um, then only we, when we realize we are all sparks of the divine Lord, all of the people, devotee, non-devotee, or whoever, we are all sparks of the divine Lord. The devotee's mind becomes broader and transparent, and he can see things equally. Equally is like what we see in the temple, the picture that he sees God in the lowest of the low and the highest of the high. So there is, I just heard that there is a saying in the Chinese, um, people say it, that the darkest cloud has a silver lining and the most shining light will have a black spot. So we should not, it's a very difficult state to attain of equanimity, where one is not affected by the other person's doings, what the person is doing. It is a very difficult state to achieve, and even when we achieve it, it is very difficult to maintain that state, to uh, to just not to just not think about what the person has done and to forgive and forget, and just like, okay, um, this is some reaction coming. It is a very difficult state to achieve, to see things equally. That even equally also means that whoever are our enemies and our friends, we can see equally. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita: for me there is no friend and there is no enemy, but I um I'm close to the people who worship me, something like that. So seeing things equally also means that we have to not look at the person as the enemy and a friend as a friend and favorite, which is very difficult even for devotees to follow Bhagavad Gita. Really, what Krishna has said, it is any religion, the test point is how much are we following the principles of the basic principles of that religion. So one of the things is of Krishna says is to be equal minded, and that means to be to look equally to a friend or an enemy, and to be equally situated, which is a very difficult state to attain even for a devotee. But when one attains that stage of life, there is peace, and one is situated equally with me as Sachidananda Vigraha. So one has to personally pray to God and try to center oneself and try to remember the non-permanence of things, the non-permanence of anything, good or bad, um, and the non-permanence of even emotions of a person, which is very difficult. Like sometimes we feel that our own people have turned against us. Sometimes those very people become our friends, and the third day they want to kill us. So it's like it's very difficult to be free from this emotion of he's my enemy, he's my friend, and I have to be equally situated to both, because they are all um, just carrying out the karmas that we have done. So it's very difficult to see it that way. Um, so that was my understanding of the verse, and now the purport says that so yeah, the Mayavadis think that when we achieve that state of nirguna, which means we are not affected, we are in our state of pure consciousness, we merge into the existence of the Supreme. But the Vaishnava philosophers of conception is different. um, we believe that when we become like the one who we worship, in the sense we are trying to follow what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, and then we become that person who can be totally equal minded, who can be totally um, free of any material contamination, without thinking of any victory, loss, uh, or defeat, or victory, but just to do our duty as was explained in the previous verse. And then we become the servitor of the Supreme, in the sense following what he is saying, and also then we are fit to serve him, because we know what he is trying to preach to us, and then we are enabled to do service for him, in the sense to serve his uh, to serve him. In there can be millions of ways in which a person can serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and our own little contribution is very insignificant. Only if we pray to God to give us the chance to serve him, he can enable us to serve him in many different ways. Whatever he has given all of us, many talents and gifts by which we can serve other people or serve him directly or indirectly, or even indirectly is also serving him. And that is called Brahman realization, the spiritual perfection of the living entity. Um, so I think that service is really a relative term. Yes, it is very um, people are fortunate who can serve in the temple of the deities, but um, um, but when we serve human beings, they are also the sparks or um, they are also representatives of the Supreme Lord. I mean, it is not like we can negate it that okay, all beings are imperfect and how can they can be representatives of the Supreme Lord. But basically, yeah, like in the Bible it says, if you cannot love um, a person whom you have seen and heard, then how can you love um, a God whom you have not seen and heard? But that's another thinking, another doctrine of or another philosophy. But whenever we are trying to do anything selflessly for the common good, and dedicated to the whatever, dedicated to the universe, the higher consciousness, to the supreme being, we are actually doing service to the Supreme Lord. Whenever we are doing something unselfish without an ulterior motive, but with the but whenever we submit the fruits of the actions to the Supreme Lord, that uh, the he has basically given us this body, this intellect, this talents, whatever we have, and whatever little we can do to serve him in whatever capacity we can. He is service according to me, because when an instance which is very popular comes to the mind, like we often discuss it, is when Lord Ram was building the bridge, and Hanuman and all the monkeys were assisting him in building the bridge. Then a small squirrel was trying to put pebbles in the water to assist Lord Ram, and then uh, Hanuman is upset, and he's like, the monkeys are. It was, I don't know if it was Lord Hanuman or it was Angad, the person who was assisting in building the bridge. He was like, well, the monkeys are coming and going, and then there is interference because the squirrel keeps popping up in between, back and again, back and forth, putting pebbles, and it slows the momentum of the work. And then Lord Sri Ram picks up the squirrel and says that you have to look at the heart. That she thinks she can make a difference in building the bridge, and that is what is most important, not what is actually being done, like, because he could manufacture millions of bridges just out of his powers. So it is the intention of the person, the surrender one has, and the sincerity one has, and the devotion one has, that matters in whatever work we do. When we give it to God, is a real service. So that was my understanding of the verse.
Okay, thank you. Very nice. That last point you made was good. That according to our capability, we can serve the Lord, and the Lord doesn't make a distinction between someone who's doing, spending a lot of money and building big temples, and someone who's doing a small amount of service. All right, I think it's pretty late. We'll read the next verse tomorrow. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thanks for giving me a chance to speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare